Hey, it's episode 231. This is my fifth interview with Brian Cates. He is a columnist with the Epoch Times, X22 Report, and many other locations. He is one of my top 2 or 3 favorites, probably my favorite on Telegram. Today, we're talking all about the Durham investigation. It's finally breaking into the mainstream news, but this is something that's been going on for years, and it's something that Brian has been writing about and talking about for years. Let's welcome Brian to the show right after this. Brian, it's great to see you. It's been a couple of months. How have you been?
Well, I've been busy.
I see you're breading a ton.
There's all kinds of things going on. Sometimes there's so much stuff going on, so I keep up.
So I follow you on Telegram, and I just joined your Twitch channel. What is the best place for people to go to follow you? I love Telegram, but as far as videos and things like that, what's the best thing for people to do?
Well, I have 2 different places that I use for live streaming now. For brief videos, I use locals.com, which you may have heard. They just had this big merger, or they were just acquired by Rumble. So just a very basic streaming site. I use that just for quick 10, 15, 20-minute videos. But most of my longest streams where I go for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, I've been doing those on Twitch. The Twitch lets you go longer. And
I think Trump's new...
Twitch.
Right. What do you think about Trump's new platform, Truth Social?
Well, I think it's a good idea. And I would love to see the stock price of that thing shoot up in over, $200, $300, $400, $500. The higher it goes, the greater the market cap becomes. Trump is looking to acquire media properties with that company. It's an acquisition firm. He's looking to, and this is the perfect time to do that because, the Trump slump is very real. There's a lot of media companies that really miss Trump, and they're having to lay off staff left and right. Their ad revenues are in the toilet. Their readership is abandoning them. Especially over the last year and a half, a lot of people woken up to the fact what the media's been doing. While they try to suppress information rather than share it, and let the people make up their own minds. Instead, they're trying to control people by keeping certain things from them. We saw that with the 100-byte laptop for the election. We saw it with the suppression of the election theft discussion. The nation wanted to talk about it. The social media, big tech would not let them talk about it. We've seen it with HCQ. We've seen it with ivermectin. They're trying to pretend that there are no drug therapies for treating it. The only way you can treat COVID is with vaccination. And so we're trying really hard to control the American population. And so this is the perfect time for Trump to launch his own social media app. And I believe he's going far beyond just a social media app. The more billions of dollars that this company gets in stock value, the more of these very weak tech companies will be able to acquire. It's a lot easier to take over an already existing media company, because they already have their own infrastructure, they already have their own office buildings, they already have, instead of starting from scratch, it's better to acquire one So it's interesting to see what he does with this company in the next couple of months.
Yeah. There's a bit of a clicking sound at your place.
Yeah, that's my computer.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
no
why.
worries.
I probably need to get it worked on. It's something to do with the fan.
Okay, no problem. So you have been writing about John Durham and his investigation for years. And a lot of people have been saying for years that nothing is happening, nothing is going to happen. And you've been telling us that's not correct. You've written some great articles about it. And now, recently, you're vindicated with the Sussman indictment. Maybe I want to talk about Durham, but maybe let's start with how do we explain to people who are just getting up to speed with these topics, why do crimes that took place in 2015, 2016, 2017 take so long to get prosecuted?
Okay, I was writing about John Durham before I even knew his name.
Right.
I knew there was, from what I could observe of Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump and the things that they were doing that first crucial year they were in office, there was a lot of disinformation being put out. There were a lot of things going on behind the scenes. But people have this fixation on everything had to be done where I can see it. If it's not being done where I can see it, it's not happening or it's not real. Mm-hmm. And I understood that when you shock all these people by winning the election, and you're suddenly going to be coming in and taking command of a executive branch where you have people at the FBI, the CIA, and the State Department, and other federal agencies who are going to basically, they have a rogue government in place, and they're going to be looking to take you out just as fast as they can. Some people have the attitude that the way you handle that is you take them on, head on. You come right out in public to charge, right into the gun. You fire all these people, and you put them on trial, and Trump should have done that his very first year. And so some people struggle to accept the fact that that's not the strategy that they adopted. That's not the strategy they decided to pursue. They decided to have Sessions recuse himself, bring in Rod Rosenstein, have Rosenstein run Durham in secret. We already know, I've discussed this many times, that thanks to John Ratcliffe's declassification of the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, that John Durham was already on the job by April of 2017. That was more than 2 years before they publicly acknowledged that he was going to be the Spygate guy. He was the guy investigating how in the world did they get a warrant based on the Steele dossier when none of this stuff was verified, none of this stuff was real. How'd they pull off that magic trick? And I knew back in June of 2017, somebody's already investigating all these leaks that have been going on. I was writing columns where I was saying members of Congress were under investigation for the serial leaking they had been doing. They're just not publicly acknowledging this, and it's not publicly talking about it. And the whole time, the media on the right, you had people screaming for Sessions to do something, and then he recused himself. They brought Rosenstein in, and then Rosenstein, of course, is not telling anybody at the time, oh, I already have Durham investigating the leaks. He never gave up Durham's name. He never even hinted. And we talk about open leaks. The furthest he and Sessions would go would be saying there are leak investigations that are occurring, and that's all they would say. They say, oh, we created a special FBI leak hunting unit, and there are leak cases being built, and that, as far as they would go, would not go any further than that. Of course, people just instantly dismiss that. Oh, baloney. They're just making that up. They're just saying that to take pressure off of themselves, But we know at this point that there were federal grand juries that would see them, members of Congress who had some of the most powerful members of Congress were having their electronic communications surveillanced as part of leak hunts, leak probes. So I knew John Durham was out there before I even knew what his name was. And we got a good look at how an investigation run by political partisans is done. We spent 22 months watching how the Durham Special Counsel did its work. They constantly leaked. It was all political. Hardly any of it was real. All the leaks were mostly fake, supposedly about the Trump family being in huge legal jeopardy. And it was all made up. It was all false. If you just took a step back and stopped listening to the media and looked at what Mueller was actually doing, it's all just perjury traps. It's bank and tax fraud. There's nothing here about Russia. Nothing. And so that's why I always knew long before he wrapped up, Mueller wasn't going to find anything, as far as Russian collusion went. So we had a good long look at what a politicized investigation looks like. And so I knew that there were people behind the scenes that were doing, I call them stealth investigations. And these people were serious. They did not leak. They were, I also call them the silent professionals. And they went about their job. They built their cases. They didn't leak anything. They didn't go to the media trying to hang targets on anybody's back. They didn't do any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So if we go back in history, and I think this is what has been confusing for a lot of people, you look at the Watergate scandal, things were happening, but we knew about it. And it happened during the term of the president who was being investigated. The Clinton saga with Ken Starr, he was under investigation for most of his 2 terms by Ken Starr. But Ken Starr would have press conferences and stand on the curbside and talk to reporters all the way through. He couldn't talk about everything, but you knew things were happening, right? So, and then the Russia hoax with Mueller, there were leaks. There were occasional statements released, but that was constantly talked about in the news. So it's really strange to people to hear that Hoover and Durham have been investigating things that started in 2016. We've had a whole presidential term go by. No press conferences, almost zero leaks about the whole thing.
People complain that they keep reusing the same 1 or 2 pictures of Durham. Because Trump made that sarcastic statement. Is John Durham even a real person? He had people running around saying they didn't think John Durham really exists.
Right.
That's how close to the vest and low key this guy is. Like you mentioned, there's no press conferences. I'm pretty sure when they get around to indicting Christopher Steele, Mark Elias, Glenn Simpson, some of these other lower level people, the foot soldier guys, the political operatives, I believe, will all be indicted first. The people who were the tip of the spear. Sussman was the tip of the spear. He's the guy he's the one they sent to make the approaches to these federal agencies. Elias didn't do that. Elias stayed back at the office at Perkins Coie. He was just supervising. Sussman. And Sussman made the approaches to these federal agencies to hand off the Alpha Bank hoax, the thumb drive, and the white papers. Okay, but they'll start with those guys first, and they're going to work their way up. And when you see these indictments hit, I bet the same thing's going to happen. There will be no press conference. You won't see John Durham or any of these other prosecutors come out and pat each other on the back and give each other a bunch of attaboys, talk about what a great job they're doing and how they got their man, and they look forward to going to trial. You won't see any of this. They'll do exactly what they did with Sussman. They'll serve it for about 5 minutes, unseal the indictment in court. Then they'll show up for the arraignment. The person will plead guilty or not guilty, and then everybody will leave, and the Durham people will sink back out of sight.
Right. So a lot of people accused Bill Barr of doing nothing, but right before the end of Trump's first term, Bill Barr appointed Durham as special counsel. Durham has been working for years on this. What is the significance of appointing him as a special counsel?
What a lot of people don't remember is that it was back, I believe it's September 2017, Jeff Sessions writes a letter to Congress. Some congressman had asked him what was being done to investigate the really odd way that the Hillary Clinton email server investigation was handled by the FBI. Sessions wrote a letter in which he said that Department of Justice Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz was looking into that. And to assist Horowitz, he had assigned a U.S. attorney named John Huber of Utah. And Huber was leading a team of U.S. attorneys. So the picture you get is you have Horowitz, and the Inspector General's office had its own investigators, their own investigative team. You have Horowitz and his team, and then you have U.S. Attorney John Huber, and he's leading a team of U.S. attorneys. And they never told you which attorneys these were, how many were there, what their names were. All they said was Huber was leading a team of U.S. attorneys. This is in 2017. So over time, what happened is, and we already know from the text messages I mentioned earlier, Durham's already a U.S. attorney who's investigating the leaks that targeted certain people. He's already on the job in May of 2017. And then Sessions revealed that Huber was leading a team of U.S. attorneys to look into the Clinton Foundation stuff. So all people have this idea that all these U.S. attorneys are off running around doing their own thing. They're not talking to each other. They're obviously not coordinating anything. You know, it's just total chaos and confusion. Sure. And so I've always thought that Durham was one of the main guys. Huber was handling the Clinton stuff relating to the Clinton Foundation. And Durham was the guy that was handling the Russiagate stuff, how they created the Trump-Russia collusion hoaxes, multiple hoaxes. And we know that these hoaxes came straight from the Clinton campaign. They were paid for and directed by the Clinton campaign, using the political operatives that put them carry and using GPS. So I've said this many times, just as Huber had a team of U.S. attorneys working under him to investigate the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton-related stuff having to do with the email server and other things like massive tax evasion and things of that nature. Durham is leading his own team. I've said this for a long time now. It's not just Durham. And we know the names of some of the people that were assisting Durham. They went public with them. John Bash and Jeffrey Jensen.
Right.
John Bash was the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Texas, and Jeffrey Jensen was the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri. So when William Barr on his way out the door, he says, "Oh, by the way, I just wrote a letter designating, 2 months ago, I wrote a letter in October designating John Durham as the special counsel." That just made it official. I believe for a long time before that, Durham was functioning as a de facto special counsel, even though he did not have the official title. No official letter had been written yet. That he was leading a team that were doing investigations into the unmasking of Trump transition team members. They were doing investigations of how the Mueller special counsel handled the cases that prosecuted. And we all remember what happened when Jeffrey Jensen, came up with the exculpatory documents in the General Flynn case. And this happened several times. He went to Sidney Powell and gave her exculpatory documents under seal. It was 3 or 4 different batches of documents over some period of months. And so I've always believed that this was not 3 or 4 separate guys off doing their own thing. So we're all working together. They're just not telling you everything that they're doing.
That's right. So because he's now officially a special counsel, why doesn't Merrick Garland or Joe Biden just fire him and just say, you're looking into stuff we don't like, get out, you're fired? What's the obstacle there?
Okay, before we go into that one, I want to go to the question, why is it taking so long? Okay, this is a massive criminal conspiracy, and it runs through, there's never been an investigation like this one that has such a wide scope. It runs through the Obama White House, the Obama FBI, and into the Trump FBI, into the Obama and Trump CIA, into the Obama and Trump State Department, into the Obama and Trump Pentagon, Department of Defense. It involves foreign intelligence services in the United Kingdom and in Australia and Italy.
Yes.
There's never been anything like this of this type of scope. And so when people wonder, well, why is it taking so long? All this stuff happened like 2016, 2017. Why have they solved it all yet? Well, Cash Patel, when he was a prosecutor, he said, when you're doing a criminal conspiracy case, and you look at some of the people involved here, they're pretty slippery fish. Some of these people, they know all the tricks. And he said some of the criminal conspiracy cases that he worked on take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to build the case. And Durham is building cases and getting ready to prosecute cases for something that is so massive, that involves so many moving parts. That's why I never bought the fact, even before they officially designated him as special counsel. You do not set one U.S. attorney to engage in this type of investigation with this type of scope by himself. They don't call him and say, hey, John, all by yourself, we want you to investigate the Obama White House, the FBI, CIA, Department of Defense, the Pentagon, Perkins curious, using GPS here, would dump all this in his lap and see what he does with it. Okay, so I've always believed this was a team effort, and they played very close to the vest about how many people are on the team. We did not find out. They were very good at hiding the federal grand juries until this year. They kept the lid on all the federal grand juries that they would use. I remember how surprised everybody was when they discovered in June that members of Congress like Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff had been having their phone calls and texts and email surveillance due to a search warrant from a federal grand jury. I suspect the U.S. attorney that was leading that grand jury is either Durham or he's working under Durham. So all this stuff is going on behind the scenes, but because nobody sees any of it, they assume none of it is happening. But it's very intricate. There's a lot of moving parts involved in this. And like it or not, it's going to take some time. And I don't think Trump, he suspected they might steal the election from him. And he wasn't 100% sure. When they did that, he had to shift to plan B or C. And so that delayed a lot of things. That might hold some things up. But as far, now the question that you just asked, why hasn't Biden shut this down? Why hasn't Garland shut this down? I'm convinced they haven't shut it down because they can't shut it down. Because literally everything I've been talking about, if you look at Durham's investigation solely as a criminal matter, solely as a criminal investigation, he's investigating some illegal things that were done at the FBI. I don't think you really understand the true nature of what Durham is doing. You have to look at this as also a massive national security investigation. This whole thing is rife with newest national security issues. If you have a rogue element in the government that has basically launched a coup against the sitting president, even before he assumed office, that were spying on him and all the members of his transition team. Like Devin Nunes was saying, he was shown the reports with the unmasked names of the Trump transition team members discussing domestic politics, domestic policy. He was shown these reports, and he looked like he'd seen a ghost. I mean, this is national security. This is interference in the American government tradition of people transfer of power. We've never had anything like this in American history. This is national security that I'm talking about here. Okay, so I believe there were national security directives, there were PEADs, the presidential executive action documents, that he signed, that Durham and the people under him that are investigating this stuff, they're investigating national security issues, huge, massive breaches of national security. And so you can look at that as like, if a lot of people understand the concept of a poison pill, Trump left a bunch of poison pills behind him. That there are things that were set in motion, and we're a nation of law. The Biden can come in and say, I don't agree with that, but legally, because of things happening with the military, things happening with the courts, he can't shut this down, even if he would want to, because there are national security issues involved, and this was in motion long before the election was stolen for him. So he comes in the middle of the thing, and you find out there's a massive national security investigation that's been underway for 4 or 5 years. They're not just going to let you come in there and shut it down just because it's going to make you and your friends look bad.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so massive, as you said. I read, I'm not sure if it was you who wrote it or if you shared it, but they filed the indictment against Sussman, and it was unusually long. They call it speaking indictment, where they're outlining the broad outlines of a massive conspiracy. And then they had a couple of weeks to give Sussman's lawyers the backup documents. And they served it with 81,000 pages of documentation, which is insane. Like, I can't even fathom it. It's boxed like a dolly full of boxes, pallets full of boxes of documentation. Here's how we're going to prove that you lied to the FBI about who was paying you. 81,000 pages. So obviously it's more than just that single charge. Yeah.
I believed all along. From the moment I looked at that indictment, I said, wow, this thing's 27 pages long. And there are some pretty good legal people who have prosecution experience, Shipwreck Crew and Robert Barnes and some others that talk about this. All you need to do in an indictment is say, here's what the person did. Okay, it's like, especially for a false statement charge. Here's what the person said to the federal official. Here's what a truthful answer would have looked like. You can do that in a page, 2 pages.
Right.
Okay. Instead, Durham puts out 27-page indictment, and it's like a roadmap. It's like he takes the reader on a journey. I put it in a recent column. He takes it on a journey. He shows you how the Clinton campaign was funding and directing the creation of hoaxes. Basically, there were fake Trump-Russia hoaxes. And they were paying these people at Perkins Coie and Fusion GPS to come up with these hoaxes and then approach federal officials with them. And that indictment, it not only showed that they were doing that, it showed that they had private contractors. That's where New Star, Roland Joff, or Rodney Joff, I can't remember his first name all of a sudden, but Joff and these Georgia technical researchers are federal contractors they're brought in to help improve the government's cybersecurity, to deal with cybersecurity issues. It turns out, if you read that indictment, what they're doing is they're mining the federal database. Snowden and stuff like that. The government always is hoovering up more information than they'll admit to. And these are the contractors that are going through these databases where all this intercepted information is sitting there. and they're using certain targeted names. They're targeting certain names of Trump and Trump associates. They're looking for data on these people that they can use. And so you have these contractors mining the federal databases for any information like phone calls, emails, text messages relating to General Michael Flynn, Michael Cohen, Cardi Pay, Paul Manafort. They have targets, and they're mining the databases with the names of these targets. And it's, obviously it's illegal to do this. If you're contracted to come in and do a job for the government to improve the cybersecurity, you're not supposed to be, you're supposed to be doing your job. You're not supposed to be sitting there mining their database with some political dirt that you can find on somebody, turn around and hand it to the Hillary Clinton campaign. You're not supposed to be doing that. It's illegal. And so that's one of the issues that comes up in that indictment. It shows an awful lot of conspiracy going on. The people conspiring to steal classified or non-public information off of federal databases, to give it to these private firms, using GPS and ProSecute, and then they show you and the email chains and the discussions they're having among themselves. Wow, this is really good stuff. They came up with this Alpha Bank information, pinging the Trump server at Trump Tower. How can we use it? How can we turn this into something? And they start putting their heads together and they're talking about this in the email. How do we make this look good enough that we can go give this to a federal official and get them to investigate it? And then we can read that to the media. Hey, wow, Trump has an illegal back channel at Trump Tower. One of his servers is talking to a Russian server in Moscow. And the FBI is investigating that. There must be something there. And so, see, that's what the strategy was. And so the indictment walks you through this. And this is just one of the hoaxes they invented, of course. I call this the minor branch of the Russiagate hoax. Alpha Bank was a minor branch. The major branch was the Steele dossier. So so right now we're seeing what Durham's doing with Alpha Bank. You can see he's taking it very seriously.
Right. What I like about it is it really shows how they launder information, and they have this kind of circular thing going on with the media. So they create a fake story, they give it to the FBI, then they leak to the press, and the press says the FBI is investigating this thing. And you'll even see the FBI go back to the FISA courts and say, well, we have media reports that Trump is up to this, that, and the other, so we need to investigate it. And you see Garland got caught just now with the school boards saying, well, we had media reports that the parents were threatening violence against the teachers. It was all BS. It was all total bullshit. So he said, we're investigating because we got media reports. But the media reports were fake. So I want to ask you, Brian, does this Sussman indictment indicate that he's really close to bringing more indictments, or does it mean we got to wait another 3-4 years until the next one comes?
No, we won't have to wait 3 or 4 years. The expiration date for a lot of the key criminal acts that were occurring from very late October into around June, very late October 2016 through June or July of 2017, the 5-year anniversaries are approaching. There's a lot of stuff that if Durham's going to charge it, he's got to charge it in the next 5-6 months. And I think we're gonna see a lot of indictments start dropping because there are a lot of false statements that Christopher Steele made. I discussed this in some recent columns I did on my Substack. And the X-22 report that Steele can be indicted for 3 different things. Okay, first of all, Christopher Steele gave federal officials 2 different versions of who his primary subsource was for the dossier. He told the FBI it was Igor Danchenko. He told Kathleen Kavlik at the State Department it was the primary subsource was actually 2 different men. Vyacheslav Trubnikov, I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, and Vladislav Surkov. Trubnikov is the former head of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service. You don't get any higher in Russian intelligence than that. And Surkov was Putin's right-hand man for a number of years. He was deposed like a few years ago, but at the time that the Stildoff was being put together, these were two of the most powerful intelligence guys in the Russian government. So, still, obviously, he could have lied to both of them. He could have lied to James Baker at the FBI. He could have lied to Kathleen Kablick at the State Department. He could have lied to both of them. But there's no doubt he lied to at least one of them. And so he gave two different versions of where he got most of his dossier allegations from. The second thing he can be charged for is he's obviously part of a criminal conspiracy to manufacture a fake Trump Russia hoax and hand it off to federal officials to try to get the Trump campaign investigated. And the third thing he can be indicted for is the one we just discussed. The person who illegally takes classified information off of a federal NSA database or one of these federal government databases, you take something off that database illegally, okay, you're not the only one in trouble. Anybody you give that information to, and you give it to them and they take it, and they make use of it, and they know where you got it from. They know that you stole it. Okay, that person is in legal jeopardy too. I don't think there's any way that Glenn Simpson and Christopher Steele of Fusion GPS did not know where these private contractors were getting this stuff from. And let me just briefly go into this. And the column I wrote at X22 report that just went out this morning. Okay. Psychic researchers like myself and Tracy Beans and Jeff Carlson were talking back in 2017. One of the first allegations from the Steele dossier that was debunked almost as soon as it was first published by BuzzFeed in January 2017 was the Michael Cohen and Prague story.
Right.
Because Cohen could prove he never been to Prague. He was like at a stateside baseball game with his son, you know. And so that was one of the first lies of the Steele dossier to be debunked. But then the question comes up, well, where did Steele get this information from that somebody named Michael Cohen was in Prague? It turns out there was a Michael Cohen in Prague at that time. And they likely pinned his cell phone. They had some cell phone stuff that ended up in a database somewhere. And so what happened is, I believe these private contractors were mining the federal database, and they came across the name, and they have a file of Trump associates. And Michael Cohen's name is in that file. And they come across the cell phone information for Michael Cohen in Prague. And so they took that out of the database and they passed it to Christopher Steele, who uses it in his dossier. And he makes up the story about Michael Cohen being in Prague and this such and such a date with several associates, and they're there to make the payoff to the hackers, the Russian hackers, who hacked into the DNC and stole the emails, you know. And it turns out there was a Michael Cohen in Prague, but it wasn't that Michael Cohen. And so we were wondering about this 2 years ago. Me, Tracy Beans, Jeff Carlson. Was somebody mining the federal database? We already knew that Admiral Mike Rogers had caught some contractors doing that back in March and April of 2016 and had shut the whole system down. They were using about queries, you know, to find certain individuals in the database and then looking at the information. And he shut that down. Well, it turns out that the Clinton campaign had its own private contractors that it was in touch with that were also doing this. And it looked like that one of them took the name Michael Cohen, the cell phone info, off the database and still ended up with it and used it in the Steele dossier. He's going to regret doing that.
Oh, yeah. There's speculation Christopher Steele, Glenn Simpson, Mark Elias. Those three I've heard quite a bit. Speculation as to who's going to be the next name to be indicted. Do you have any thoughts on who's going to be next?
Okay. My speculation is because of the news that broke this week that Sussman is talking to Durham. He came in to answer questions from Durham. I believe Sussman is either flipped or is getting ready to flip. Because, like you talked about, 81,000 pages of discovery that they dropped in his lap. That was over 7. That was like over almost 4 weeks ago now. Mm-hmm. And he and his legal team had time to huddle up and look it over. When a defendant pleads not guilty, and they sometimes it's just a strategy. They say, "I will never plead guilty. I'm gonna fight you guys in court. I think I can beat your case," but they don't really know what that case is yet. They won't know that till they get to the discovery phase. So that's why you plead not guilty. And so you get the government's discovery, and then you huddle up with your legal team, you look at it, and you say, okay, now that we know what they have, what are our chances of getting a favorable verdict at trial? Okay. And my take is when Sussman huddled up with his legal team and they looked over some of these 81,000 pages and said, okay, he can prove it. Okay, Durham can prove not only that he lied to James Baker about working for the Clinton campaign, he can also prove the criminal conspiracy and all this talk, the emails and stuff that we're talking about. I don't think it's we have to work on this some more so we can successfully fool these federal officials into taking this seriously, And they have all this discussion, and he realizes, yes, Durham can prove the criminal conspiracy charge too, and that's the main one. False statement charge, you'll deal with, you're not going to get the whole 5 years on a false statement charge. If you have no criminal record, you're probably going to get just a year or two at the most. But a conspiracy to defraud the federal government, give them a fake hoax like that, that's a 10-year sentence. You're going to get more time for that one. And I can see Sussman going, okay, they got me. I need to do a deal. I'm going to end up doing, 7, 8, 9 years in prison. So I think that's why he's talking to Durham right now. Yeah. He's flipped or he's going to. And if it's Sussman, then that means the next guy they're probably going to indict would be Mark Elias. Yeah. Mark Elias would be next.
And I guess we could kind of look like this as a pyramid. Sussman, Kleinsmith, these people are kind of foot soldiers. How long does it take to move up the pyramid to get to people like Clinton, Obama, or just below that, Strzok, Page, Jim Comey? How long is that going to take, do you think?
Sussman, if he's flipped, he gives you Elias.
Right.
Okay. Steele, if they flip Steele, they indict him, and he flips. He gives them Simpson and Fritz, the other head two head guys at Fusion GPS. I just wrote a Substack a couple of days ago. There are other people that are inside the FBI that are already flipped. We're pretty sure James Baker already flipped. He's already cooperated. Right. He already went public with the fact that if this Sussman case goes to trial, they were going to call in James Baker, as a witness for the prosecution. So he's cooperating. And there are strong rumors that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page are cooperating, and it might be that Bill Priestap is also cooperating. I've had a 3-year theory at this point about the guy that I call the FBI's invisible man, the DOJ's invisible man. It's a name a lot of people haven't heard in a while. Joseph Pienka. Right. Okay, Joseph Pienka was the other FBI agent that was there. They went to the White House. He and Peter Strzok together went to the White House January 24th, 2017 to interview General Michael Flynn. And that's where the false statement charge that the Mueller counsel hit General Flynn with, and we got that like 3 years of unpleasantness from that. Okay, that came out of that interview on January 24th. And Joseph Pienka just is he's a literal ghost. By the middle of 2017, he's disappeared. Nobody can find him. So I'm convinced that he's cooperating, and they pretty much ghosted him. They have him tucked away somewhere, waiting to bring him out. I don't know when that will be at the present time. But there are some people that see there's no hurry, there's no rush for the FBI side of this, is what I'm trying to say. Because some of the key people, you think about, Peter Strzok, the guy that was running the Crossfire Hurricane team, if they flipped him, talk about a guy who's president of the creation. Both he and Pienka both were in the middle of all of this. So some of these FBI people seem to already be cooperating. So there's no rush on that one. So what Durham seems to be exploring is he's trying to flip Sussman and Elias so he can get at the Clinton campaign from the other side of this. Because if Sussman flips and he gets pressure on Elias and Elias flips, well, Elias is even more intimately acquainted with who with the Clinton campaign was directing this, and who came up with the plan, and who he was reporting back to. He knows who those people are. So that's why all the action is on the Alpha Bank side right now. It's on the Perkins Coie side of the equation. I think when he gets around to the Steele dossier thing, that's already wrapped up. That won't take long at all.
Some indication that on the Clinton campaign side was actually Hillary Clinton that was calling the shots on a lot of these things. But what about the Huber investigation of the Clinton Foundation? And remember, during the debates with Clinton and Trump, he said he would appoint a special counsel to investigate her emails. We've heard that the 5-year statute of limitations is coming up for a lot of these things. The Clinton email scandal is 2014, I think, right? Like, does some of this stuff, is it too late for some of these things?
Well, for stuff that happened in 2014, yeah, definitely. They even admitted, like a year and a half ago, some of the lies Comey told. They decided they weren't going to charge him on that. So it's stuff that was in 2014, the Clinton email thing. Okay, the thing is, what you have to remember is, if somebody engages in a criminal conspiracy, it's not just a false statement charge. A false statement charge can be an act that is taken to further a criminal conspiracy. Okay, and the way it works in the law is that the last act that is undertaken, the last criminal act is undertaken to further a conspiracy, that's when the clock starts ticking on the statute of limitations.
I see.
Okay, so a lot of the stuff that was done in the investigation of how the FBI handled the Clinton email server investigation happened in 2017. Is when that happened.
Yes.
That's when Huber and all the other guys were calling people and asking them questions under oath. And the Inspector General was also doing that with his own investigating team. So a lot of this stuff, it was 2017. It would begin sometime around April. I mean, same time Durham did, the same time that Huber and all these other guys and the Inspector General were looking into it. So 2017 to, it would be like 2022 until the statute of limitations runs out.
Right.
Since if they had told any lies in 2017 to Huber and his investigators, that told any lies to the Inspector General and his investigators, then that would be the last act that was done to further the conspiracy.
Right.
So it was,
right.
That's when the clock would start ticking.
Interesting. So the Russia investigation was actually part of the reason was to cover up the email scandal to take the heat off of Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
right, for the email scandal.
There was a Russian intelligence analysis that was intercepted by the CIA. They became aware of it in late July of 2016. And some people were just, when this came out, when Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe declassified this last year, John Brennan and a lot of these other people that were involved in, Brennan, of course, is the guy, he went to the White House to beat Obama about it, but they just, when the declassification was done, they just said, oh, this is Russian disinformation. It doesn't mean anything. Hey, but you look at that Sussman indictment. So what did the Russian intelligence analysis say? It said Hillary Clinton had been approached by a campaign staff with a plan that her team had come up with. It was the primary architect was her top foreign policy advisor. That was Jake Sullivan, the guy who is Biden's current national security advisor.
Right.
He came up with a plan to try to distract the public from an email service scandal. Where they would distract the public by creating some Trump-Russia collusion or hoaxes. And they would have their private operatives create these hoaxes, and then they would take it to their media allies, and they see if they could get the federal agencies to launch investigations of these hoaxes. And then they could use that to say, hey, Trump's being investigated for colluding with the Russians, and that would pull attention away from her email service scandal. That's exactly what the Russian intelligence analysis said, okay? And the more we find out, the more Durham reveals, and he revealed a lot in this indictment. It looks like that's exactly what the Clinton campaign was doing. You have Hillary Clinton and Jake Sullivan, Robbie Mook, and the Tom's director, I can't remember her name, they're in contact with Mark Elias. Mark Elias is billing them for the time that he and Sussman are working on creating the Alpha Bank hoax and shopping it to the media and to the FBI, and then later on to the CIA. And so it looks like that Russian intelligence analysis was real, but it was dismissed at the time. Oh, that can't be right. That's just Russian disinformation. It's the same thing they said about the Hunter Biden laptop. When the Hunter Biden laptop exploded, they all dismissed it. Oh, that's just Russian disinformation. So I wonder how many times they pull this trick. It turns out that something is real, and they dismiss real scandals as being Russian disinformation, and then they try to take Russian disinformation and turn it into a real scandal. See, I think when all this comes out in the wash, Luke, what we're going to find out is Christopher Steele and a lot of these guys were fed Russian disinformation about Trump, and they laundered it, and they got it to the FBI, and they ended up investigating Trump and his associates on the basis of Russian disinformation. So we have this farcical situation where the real scandals are being dismissed as Russian disinformation, but then they're taking Russian disinformation and trying to pretend that's a real scandal and launching investigations based on it. And it's ludicrous.
Yeah, definitely. And is it true that certain crimes have different statute of limitations? So apparently lying to the FBI, making a false statement, it's 5 years.
Criminal conspiracy.
But what about things like money laundering? What about things like money laundering, crimes against humanity, human trafficking?
Right.
Some of the allegations or rumors about the Clinton Foundation that they were doing bad things in Haiti after the earthquake. There's a different statute of limitations for certain crimes, isn't there?
For a criminal conspiracy, it's 10 years. For stealing classified information, it's 10 years. It's not 5 years. And like I said, if these people are engaged in criminal conspiracy, then the prosecutors look at what was the last act that was taken to further the conspiracy. And that's when the statute of limitations would begin ticking. So, hey, if you engage in a criminal conspiracy to launder money or to steal classified information and they use it for political purposes, the clock on that is 10 years, and it did not stop ticking until the last act, the overt act that you took to keep that conspiracy going.
Yeah. Excellent. I don't know how much time you have, but I wanted to talk to you about COVID and Fauci and stuff. And I thought, if you have the time, we could split this into two. So we're getting close to an hour with the Durham stuff. Do you want to keep talking, or do you want to do another hour in the near future? What do you think?
We could do another hour. I don't really have a time. It's already 3:00 here. We'll do the second hour. Like we'll set up a time. So maybe sometime on Monday or Tuesday, if that will work for me.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds great. Okay. Well, just tell us how people can find you. What's the best place for people to follow you and read all your incredible writing on these topics?
I have a website. It's called Rise of the New Media, www.riseofthenewmedia.com.
Okay.
And a great guy who lives in Peru put that site together for me. It's got all my column archived up there at Epoch Times, Uncover DC, X22. It's got a link to my Telegram channel. It's got a link to my Teespring store. It's got a link to my Substack. So it's pretty much like a portal. It's a portal window into all my other stuff. The links where I sell my books. And so that's all one spot. Riseofthenewmedia.com.
Nice. And you've been publishing columns for X22 Report, and I'm a huge fan of Dave. How did you guys get connected?
Oh, I think Dave Hayes, praying medic on Telegram, sent me a link and they wanted to talk to me, be interested in giving me an interview. And I did an interview with him, and we hit it off really good. And then he talked to me about, hey, would you be interested in writing columns for the site? I said, sure.
Excellent.
And so that's how we got together. So I thank Dave Hayes for that.
Okay. So we'll send people to that website because that sounds like a central hub where they can get links to everything else.
Everything's there. My Twitch channel, my Locals channel, everything's on that one site. You find links to everything there.
Perfect. Okay, I want to talk to you in a few days about the COVID situation, the vaccine mandates, and so many interesting things happening there. But I think we need a full hour to talk about that too. So we'll set up that time.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thanks. Thanks for coming on again.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate it.